I think media is like everything else. It's a news story. I'll tell you where social media has had a great impact is when you represent someone, because you can have a young man who is basically good kid, but for that one day he does some video, does some rap music, puts on the wrong colors. The greater impact has been in representing clients in that what they post on YouTube, what they do on Instagram, a lot of times can come back and hurt them. To me, that has had a greater impact than than the commentary.
Than the commentary. So what you're saying is, as an attorney, you could be putting yourself in a bad position due to who you choose to represent in a certain case.
What do you mean?
Or is that what you?
No, I'm talking.
Okay, like
When I think about social media is you represent a young man who's charged with with a gun charge, and then you look through his Facebook, you look through his Instagram, and he's holding guns or hanging out with people with guns. That to me has a greater impact on the court system than the actual than the talking heads. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hello and welcome everyone to another edition of NoJass. That's NoJass. That stands for Not Just Another Sports Show. And I know you can hear it in my voice. Very, 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 very extremely exciting game 3 in Indiana. But before I get to that, I just want to welcome everybody back. It's been a second since we did a show, and without further ado, I want to introduce my right-hand man. Don't necessarily call him my co-pilot. He's going to kind of lead the show tonight, so that's how you're going to know who he is even more. But my main man, Tank. Tell everybody hello, Tank.
What's going on, people? How y'all been feeling? Been a while, but we back. What did LL say? Don't call it a comeback.
Don't call it a comeback. Don't call it a comeback. Most definitely, they don't call it a comeback. And as you all know, I just want to thank everyone for subscribing. All of our new subscribers, all of our subscribers on TikTok. And remember to make sure you TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and just make sure you subscribe, join, follow on Facebook at NoJass Show, on TikTok at NoJass Show, on Instagram at noj.a.s.s. I haven't said it in so long, I don't even know if I got it right. So just look at a previous episode just to make sure. And it's been a lot going on in sports, as I stated before. The Knicks pull out a Game 3 win, 106-100. I think the comeback was at least 18. They were down. So now Knicks fans have an opportunity to do the Reggie Miller choke because those boys came in and played hard. Now, to be honest with you, I had already said it was going to be a gentleman's sweep. And for those of you who don't know what a gentleman's sweep is, that's when you don't win 4-0, but you do win 4-1. So I still believe with New York's depth and the way they play 5 starters, they may not have the wherewithal to get past the next 3 games, because I do believe Indiana was just trying to make sure they won one at home to, in a sense, keep the home field advantage. But without further ado, we do have a special guest tonight, and I'm going to let Tank introduce him, and he's going to tell you exactly who he is and what he's about, because this segment is going to be based upon what would be the legal aspects of a lot of things going on in sports, a lot of things going on in social America. We might even touch on, aspects outside of sports with the special guest we have. But without further ado, I'm going to let Tank introduce him, and then we're going to carry on with that segment of the show, and then probably move into, the latest in what's been going on in sports. Congratulations, Travis.
Congratulations.
On your wedding. To your fiance, and we'll get into that. But Tank, just tell the people who we have on the show tonight and what it's all about.
Well, as you all know, we are NoJass, which means not just another sports show. So as KD likes to say, and it's true. We don't just talk about sports, but we talk about pop culture. We also talk about some things outside of sports as well. So you can find a variety of things that we'll discuss. Tonight's guest is attorney William Matos, and he's going to give us some insight from the legal aspect, so it won't be biased, but the legal aspect of an attorney on both the Shannon Sharpe case and also the Diddy case. Because
we are going to touch on Diddy.
yes, we're going to talk about both.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Sharpe, and then we're going to talk about Sharpe, getting, just Sharpe, and then we're going to smooth it out with the baby oil of Diddy. So again, Attorney Matos, he is not only a defense attorney, but he also is a general practitioner. So he specializes in a broad variety of different areas of law. So it's not just one thing that he's proficient in. And also something that he's very proud of is he's a 5-time, he had to make sure he correct me, I thought it was 2, but he's a 5-time fantasy football league champion as well.
You know what? We might need to get Mr. Matos on in right now to congratulate him on that aspect of his sports life. That's good. We got to touch on that.
Yes, and so without further ado, he's also a rabid Florida State fan, Seminoles fan.
Oh wow!
So we're going to bring him in, and we're going to discuss Shannon Sharpe's case. We're going to also discuss the Diddy case, and we're going to talk about it from a legal aspect as far as him being a defense attorney as well, telling how and why he would go about defending these cases if he was the attorney on record.
All right. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce and bring in attorney William Matos. How you doing, Mr.
How you doing?
Matos?
Good evening. Good. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be on the show this evening and provide some insight. I'm my office or my practice basically is in Atlanta, Georgia. I practice law throughout the state. Been doing it for about 30 years. So, hopefully I can provide some insight to your viewers and stuff.
That. I didn't know. Well, you know what? You say he was on the East Coast, but I didn't know he was Atlanta local.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Russell wanted me to talk about first of all Shannon Sharpe. What's important to note in all these cases, even in the P. Diddy case, they all started out as a civil action, which is not criminal. You can't go to jail. You're not going to be put in prison. They're all seeking money. So the way the Shannon Sharpe case started was this young lady files a lawsuit in April of this year. They had, I think, a 2-year relationship from 2022 to 2025. I think she was 19 or 20 years of age. The lawsuit was filed, and it alleged that Shannon Sharpe had sexually assaulted her, battery, emotional distress, and I think she accused him of distributing videos. Basically, I think Shannon tried to offer $10 million to kill the lawsuit. She ended up suing for $50 million. What's interesting in all these cases that there is one central figure. It's attorney Tony Buzbee. Tony Buzbee was in the Deshaun Watson case. Tony Buzbee was in the P. Diddy case. Tony Buzbee was the one that basically tried sending a demand letter to Jay-Z, and he ended up taking it back. So it's the same attorney pretty much on all these cases. So he sued, for $50 million. Shannon Sharpe doesn't deny that the relationship existed. Obviously, he's denying that there was any abuse or anything like that. The media has it that she was a minor. She was 19, 20, so that's not really accurate. They made it sound like she was like 13 or 14 years of age, and that's kind of unfair. So basically, it's a civil case. Many times these civil cases are going to get settled. So I'm thinking somewhere between the $50 million and the $10 million, they'll end up settling the case. Buzbee said, I think Buzbee actually leaked some texts, some video, phone conversation between them. And a lot of times, when you're representing somebody who's accused of this, is, first of all, we're not talking about a minor, so there's no strict liability. But what we're talking about is, is it someone trying to ask for money, trying to get money, and many times the truth is, I always find that in my 30 years, the truth is somewhere in the middle. it's not one way or the other. The issue is basically, eventually either they'll settle or a jury will have to decide whether, they had a relationship, he broke it off, she got disgruntled, boom, she made the allegations because of the deep pockets. Or she made the allegations, they can substantiate them. But basically, it's many times a he said, she said game in these types of cases.
Well, what I want to ask is, what role or how much influence or impact will these exchange text messages between the two of them play as far as trying to reach a settlement, or if it actually went to trial? Because it's an admitted consensual relationship, but at the same time, for me, I think for people in the real world, they look at all of this talking about choking and stuff. That's just what they did. That was one of their fetishes. But a jury of his peers might look at it as it was threatening. It was physical harm to her. These text messages showed that it was, from what you read, it was consensual. How much impact do you think those text messages will have if they're presented to a jury?
I tell you, Russell, a lot of times people focus on one text or maybe a couple of texts. It's been my experience. I focus on all the texts. Why? When the texts were sent, was there still communication after this alleged threat? Was there a relationship after this? In other words, you want to look at all the text and basically from the text create a timeline as to what was the relationship. Did she cut the relationship off immediately? Did they continue to have a relationship? Because I think, yes, you can have these threats and stuff like that. I don't think there was any, the threats were made, but there were no police reports done. So that's going to be something. So what you try to do as a defense attorney is discredit it. Yes, we can focus on these two texts, but let's focus on the text that came 2 weeks later when they're talking about going on vacation to Hawaii. So that's the thing. You need to look at the whole thing, the whole chronology of the text, and not just one text by itself.
So, go ahead, Katie.
No, go ahead and ask your question.
Okay. So, the fact that she is alleging that there was sexual assault and whatnot, but never filed criminal charges, how much of an impact on the case as far as settling that would it have? And also, because he offered $10 million to keep everything private, because according to him, he just didn't want his personal life out there. But once apparently they got word of a potential $100 million contract coming to him, that's why they asked for $50 million. So what impact does that have on the possible settlement of the case, or if it goes to trial?
Yeah. Like I said, the issue of having again, my experience, a police report is probably more of an impact on the jury. Now, as far as settling, when lawyers are discussing it, I don't, all they're looking for is we don't want this information leaked because basically I want to try to keep as much of my reputation as I can. So the incident reports maybe not as far as a civil settlement is a big deal. I think maybe if you get to trial and a jury wants to hear it, you said you were abused, this happened, you never made any type of report, that may have a little more impact on a jury. But I think for the purpose of a civil settlement, it's more of, I want to cut my losses either way and just, go from there.
My question, in 30 years, you've been practicing,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm glad that's a round number because that's around the time that I was first introduced to court TV
Mm-hmm.
and the media being as impactful as it is in court cases. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, my first instance of that might have been OJ, but it could have been the Menendez brothers or something like that. But somewhere around that timeline, you started seeing the media itself outside of newspapers, because I'm pretty sure the media had something to do with it, had an influence. But as far as live seeing it, so my question is, with these new developments and new media and social media being, as rampant as it is, and everybody has an opinion prior to everyone's day in court, how much of an impact does social media and the media have on these type cases with these famous individuals?
Yeah. I think I think media is like everything else. It's a news story. I'll tell you where social media has had a great impact is when you represent someone, because you can have a young man who is basically good kid, but for that one day he does some video, does some rap music, puts on the wrong colors. The greater impact has been in representing clients in that what they post on YouTube, what they do on Instagram, a lot of times can come back and hurt them. To me, that has had a greater impact than than the commentary.
Then the commentary. So what you're saying is, as an attorney, you could be putting yourself in a bad position due to who you choose to represent in a certain case.
What do you mean?
Or is that what you?
No, I'm talking
Okay,
about what yeah, no, when I think about social media is you represent a young man who's charged with gun with a gun charge. And then you look through his Facebook, you look through his Instagram, and he's holding guns or hanging out with people with guns. That to me has a greater impact on the court system than the actual than the
Okay.
talking heads. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All your food delivery needs. Make sure you go to Light Snack. That's LYTE snack.com. And make sure for all your deliveries, whether it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner, you visit Light Snack and they'll deliver it right to your door. And make sure when you get those deliveries, make sure you're ordering those Magic City wings. And remember, their motto, don't forget to lick the sauce. It gives them an opportunity to come in and do the research and then paint this picture.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Outside of the
Absolutely. Absolutely. That to me has had more of an impact is what a defendant posts on social media than the commentary.
Absolutely. Okay. I can definitely understand that.
Mhm.
And do you think there is a thing as what was the term Shannon Sharpe used? Not railroad, but you're trying to
money grab.
Extort.
Yeah, money grab, extort him, railroad him. This is a witch hunt. Do you think there is?
Sure. You can't eliminate that possibility. Absolutely, you can't eliminate that possibility. It's a money grab. Again, I know what's important to know, and I think this is pretty consistent. The truth is always somewhere in the middle. Did they have disagreements? They may have had disagreements, but to say that she's doing this completely of an altruistic reason, the truth is, I'm a great believer the truth cuts right down the middle. So absolutely, it could be a money grab.
Okay, and I just want to know for myself, because Tank and I, we plan on expanding on this thing, and going to greater heights.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if Tank is single. I'm still single, but should I say you're my attorney? When I start dating a certain woman, should I start going to my attorney and kind of just saying, I just kind of want to put this out there. I'm dating this woman, and this is not that I don't trust her, but I kind of want you to know that I want you to trail the history of this just in case something comes up. Should we start being proactive in our own personal lives?
I'm going to tell you, as a young man, I'm going to tell you this, and I've told this to my to many of the young men I represented, and I don't want to sound like I'm anti-female or nothing like that, not at all. But I do think sometimes what I try to tell young men is, especially when there's a child involved, that's when I see it most often, is when a child is involved. Dude, just walk away. Don't make it worse than it is. Walk away. Go seek legal counsel if it's a situation where a child is born out of wedlock, you need to legitimate the child, or you're having, just walk away. Because a lot of times, once you put yourself in that situation, police, law enforcement are going to make a certain assumptions, and then you're stuck in the legal system. And all you had to do was just walk away. If she wanted to bicker, okay, you go ahead and you bicker. And again, most of the time I tell them, just walk away. And I know it's hard, and you want to flex a little, but sometimes flexing is going to cost you, to be charged, and many times unjustly.
Absolutely, good advice.
Mm-hmm.
I totally agree. Go ahead, Tank. I thought you might.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, and lastly about the Sharpe case, then we'll slide into Diddy.
Okay. No pun intended, right? Okay.
Yeah, right.
Oh man.
With Shannon on his podcast on Club Shay Shay, and particularly his other one on Nightcap, he does a lot of is men we call a lot of locker room talk, and everyone and most men out there know what locker room talk
Right.
is. It's not serious, but there's a hint of truth to it. But do you think that comes into play
Again,
once they get to negotiating and everything? And it's like, hey, you say, hey, well, I like to do such and there was one time he was talking about having sex from the back and saying, and the girl said something and he said, well, that's okay. I usually make them, and it was a ha funny type thing.
Right.
But do you think when they go back and play back different episodes, these things could be used against him, even though it's locker room talk and it's not necessarily to be taken to heart?
Well, absolutely, and that's the problem. That whatever you put out there, whether you're defending somebody or whether you're prosecuting someone, they can create a narrative on that. It could be someone like that isn't even the person that I know. But using those tidbits, using social media, Facebook, Instagram, they create a narrative about you, and that's the danger. That anything you put out there, it's open, it's out in the open. If you talk about having rough sex and all this, and remember early in the year, Shannon Sharpe slipped and then he started making blue pill commercials. But that type of thing. Yeah, remember that. Like anything you put out there, you got to be really careful because yes, they can use all that to create a narrative.
And the funny thing about that question that you asked, Tank, is that's how social media and podcasting blew up. You became the voice of the real people. So your audience became that locker room talk or the real you couldn't do on the bigger platforms who have those corporate sponsors where you have to kind of watch yourself. And so now you're seeing, those corporate sponsors are still going on those podcasts because they want the viewers and they want those advertisements and they want those people. And so now, the origins of that and what made you become you has to be taken away once you become corporate. Once you get so big, you have to kind of censor yourself to a degree. And that can have someone that can have that new raw element of podcaster come up and take things away from you, or just like Shannon, it can affect you on the bigger scale.
And let's be totally honest. And there's a different standard. There's who says it. Okay, is who says it. What's a guy in ESPN? Pat
McAfee.
McAfee can say whatever he has. And I've listened to Pat like, dude, why is this guy still on? But he can say certain things and he gets away with it. Janet can say the same thing, like, nah, we don't like that. So it's a double standard.
Right. It can't come from him. And it's funny that because this week alone with RG3, and I'm not getting into that as far as legal is concerned.
Right.
Week alone with Ryan Clark and RG, you're seeing right message, wrong messenger.
Right.
RG3 can't say that because in a certain audience, he doesn't fit the look that we want him to be saying. And then Ryan had to come back and double down on things he did because he doesn't fit the look. To be saying that about this person.
And me and Russell. And me and Russell were talking about Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, like, dude, you like, you need to just hush. But he's anytime he's on TV, it's a big entertainment show. And to many, he's quite offensive.
To many, he is. Now, I guess we'll move right along to the Diddler's case.
Yeah, could you
go ahead?
Yeah, because I think what's kind of hurting this case, not the case itself, but as far as the public's reaction and how people are reacting to it, it's because it's a federal case, so it's not we don't get real audio or video, so it's left up to interpretation from folks. But can you explain to people who who keep saying, well, they haven't shown anything that's RICO related yet? And my thing is, okay, it's 8 weeks. I think, this is me, I think that they are just painting and showing his character before they get into detail as far as what could really fall under RICO.
Right.
And you can say, okay, this type of character, I can see him being involved in that. You don't always but people, you got people saying, it's been 2 weeks. They haven't made RICO yet, but it's a long case.
Yeah.
Can you explain to people how, from a defense attorney standpoint?
Yeah, let me explain. Many people have a perception that RICO is like you're looking for some Pablo Escobar situation. You got Pablo Escobar on top, and then you got this huge cocaine trade underneath it. It's not like
Mostly
that.
how we know.
Yeah, that's right. That's how we know it, but that's not RICO.
Right.
Right.
Mhm.
RICO is basically what they're doing now in this case is they're putting up substantive evidence. So you got Cassie, and then you got some other victims, and they're laying out substantive situations, actual situation where there may have been domestic abuse or assault and that type of thing. Once they lay down the foundation, this is where the RICO kicks in. RICO is simply saying that an individual used basically his enterprise or him. It doesn't have to be a business enterprise, but one or two more people basically um, conspired through the use of threats, force, money, whatever, to commit these crimes. So basically, in P. Diddy's is that P. Diddy used employees of Bad Boy, that he used people that were associated with Bad Boy, and that those individuals helped him basically commit these crimes, these trafficking of women, all of that stuff like that. Now, what is interesting that if you look at Epstein's indictment, Epstein was never indicted under RICO. Epstein was indicted for offenses that he committed in Palm Beach and New York. They never indicted him. So P. Diddy is being held, again, to a pretty much higher standard. But that's where the RICO comes in. You know, that one or two or more people conspiring to commit basically, you know, the racketeering, the trafficking, all of that. So it's not, if you remember the YSL case in Atlanta, same thing. You had the Top Gun, okay, and that, you know, and then there was I
Young
think
Thug.
right Young Thug, and then Young Thug, and sometimes they may be associated. You can have two types of conspiracies, what they call a wheel conspiracy, where you have someone in the center, or you can have another type, which is a non-wheel conspiracy, is each person is doing something basically in well, how can I say this?
In
No, two or more people are trying to enhance the conspiracy. Okay, so with Young
okay.
Thug, it was I think you had robberies at stores, and you had a murder involved. And Young Thug may not have known about this stuff, but that they were all working, whether they knew it or not, to pursue
Together.
this enterprise. So that's RICO. But I think a lot of times
Okay.
people think that, you know, they're looking for, well, you know, he directed it. He may have directed it. He may have had an associate who directed it. Um, you know, the freak offs. He might have had a social agenda person doing the freak offs. So that's the thing with RICO. Everybody, you know, thinks of it as you know, some mafia stuff, and it is, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that structured or that, you know, laid
Not
out.
alcohol, not
Right,
as
right.
much. Now, what you just said, I don't know if he was charged with RICO, but um, R. Kelly,
R. Kelly was, yes,
um,
he was.
he had some unaware actions where underlinks were taking advantage of the enterprise itself, doing
Correct.
things he may have started it and then he kept it going,
That's
and they're like,
correct.
hey, we R. Kelly, we gonna take it to his
That's
studio. He's
correct.
way off.
He may have known or not known. He may have known or not known, but they used the R. Kelly cloud to pursue those acts. That is absolutely correct. That's correct.
Right. So I guess to bring it all home to Tank's question, and just correct me if I'm wrong, what what we're seeing now is they're building a basis of, we're trying to show you who's in power, who's the leader, who has the power, who's pushing the buttons, who's the master, who's the one that can say, I can push this button and make you do this. I can push this button and have your car blown up. I can have you tossed out. I can have
Well,
you not send me $20,000.
well,
You know.
they have to
So
establish
there's.
that they have to establish that the crimes are committed. Once they
Oh,
establish
okay.
once they establish that Kid Cudi's car was blown up, then from there they're going to go to, well, who directed that Kid Cudi's, you know, or that
Who's-
Cassie wasn't. Right. So first they got to establish the crimes, and then as the trial goes on, they'll try to connect. They'll try to connect those crimes to a larger enterprise.
Now, how is Cassie not a part of the operation? Like, how is she being excluded? Did she get some kind of immunity for her testimony? Because, you know, she has testimony where she is saying she made phone calls
And that's the thing.
and she told.
And I agree with you. So what we have here is you have Cassie. She files a lawsuit in November of 2023. Then that lawsuit, same attorney, Tony Busby, but then basically the New York legislature passes a law which extends the statute of limitation for sex crimes. So when they pass that statute of limitations, Cassie comes forward, and I think, according to Mr. Busby, there may be over 100 other alleged victims that have filed lawsuits against P. Diddy. So he testifies. She was cross-examined on it, and that again, that's going to be for the jury to determine. You know, you say all this happened, and some of it just sounds horrible, but again, you're going to look at the whole chronology. These things happen, but after some of these things happened, you still were involved in the planning of it, and you were still planning. You know, you were still aware of it. Of course, you know, they're going to argue, well, you know, she had, you know, what they call battered spouse syndrome or something to that effect. But again, that's going to be a jury to determine, you know, how much credibility they're going to give her based on the fact that, you know, again, that certain things happened even after these incidents happened. I mean, they had an 11-year relationship. Okay,
Yeah.
they had an 11-year relationship. So yeah, jury's going to take all that into consideration.
Now, the judge did earlier this week or this past week mention that they haven't gotten to the RICO yet.
Mm-hmm.
Is he going to give them enough grace to get to that, or is he going to tell them, or will he be within his within his power to say, look, you haven't shown anything about RICO yet. Either get to it now, or I'm dismissing it because there's nothing.
Yeah, most judges are going to let the state put on the case. Okay, so after the state puts on their case, then most of the time the defense attorney is going to make a motion for a directed verdict. And if and the argument would be, let's say, Your Honor, yeah, they proved, you know, the substantive incidences, but they didn't prove any type of RICO. You know, we like to move for a direct, and then the judge will decide if there's enough. And again, the standard is more likely than not. So, you know, for them to get the RICO charge to the jury, they don't have to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. All they got to prove is that, you know, there's some truth to it to get it to a jury question.
And does the defense have to just, in that same regard, just prove some level of reasonable doubt to get him free?
At the end, if the case goes to the jury, then they have to be beyond a reasonable doubt. You know,
let's say that he is guilty of some of these things, RICO or some lesser included offenses. When would it be possible for, let's say they decide, just the government says, all right, we're going to get rid of the RICO, but we're going to get him on some lesser included offenses.
Mm-hmm.
When would it still be feasible for them to enter a plea? If they say, okay, we're going to lesser include offenses, and he winds up with 10 years instead of life.
I'm going to be honest with you. And my experience with the feds is once they go forward. I mean, it's always possible. I'm not gonna say never, but once they pick that jury, it's a full go. It's a full go. You know that if they ask him if he wants to take my experience, if he wants to enter a plea, they'll tell him, okay, you got to plead to the indictment. You know, yeah, I mean, I've had prosecutors tell me, yeah, he can plead. He's going to plead to the indictment. So in federal work, that's once it's a go, it's a go. Because again, many times with federal cases, those are going to be your strongest cases. They're not. You know, they're not taking shortcuts. They've investigated this case thoroughly. They've got the witnesses locked up. They're full go. Win or lose, they're gonna full speed ahead.
Man, this is something. Yeah. So I guess to conclude, and I'm hoping I'm not asking you this about your opinion about what you see, but do you see Shannon Sharpe clearing his name and moving forward in life? I'm almost certain Diddy is kind of, he'll never be the same. Yeah, he might be cooked.
Yeah,
Do you
I
think
think with Shannon Sharpe and it's a civil case, and Russell can tell you most civil cases, 90% are going to settle. I think they'll end up settling on some amount, and there'll be a confidentiality.
Good.
Okay.
And I got one last question regarding the Diddy. Let's say if he's convicted, when, because we know the feds love to do this, when would they did they have to have already filed bond seizure and forfeiture in order to seize all of its properties and everything and seize his estate basically, or do they have to wait until there's a conviction and then seize everything?
It's for
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Okay.
Now, Attorney Matos, I heard while you were offline two things. One, I'm very happy to hear, and that is, was it a 5-time fantasy football champion? 5-time. Oh man, what you have, Dak is recording? Oh man, oh man. And then the second thing, this is actually Race of Champions Miami, but there are episodes where I will wear a University of Miami cap, and I heard you were a Florida State fan. I actually went to school in Tallahassee. Shout out to FAMU and FSU. Like I had a good both campuses. Nevertheless, I have to say I'll see you October 4th, 2025. To be determined because they may be doing well. Oh, that's something too because you all meet Alabama first and we meet Notre Dame first. And yeah, we meet Notre Dame first, and that's going to be something. I actually the other night, I came across a redshirt freshman that was up here in Atlanta for his cousin's graduation. Booker Pickett. I told Booker I was going to announce his name someday on the podcast, and you just came up, Booker. Booker Pickett, very very nice young man. That was a big boy. He was like, "Yes, sir." I'm like, "Man, that was a big boy." He's redshirt freshman, defensive end, Miami. He said we're going to be ready for Notre Dame, and he's going to be ready. So I hope it's going to be great things this season for University of Miami, and Florida State because I do want to see the ACC back, ACC, especially for the playoffs, so we won't be seeing, how to dominate everything. Most definitely. Well, we really appreciated your insight. I thank you so much. You kind of gave me a lot of clarity. I hope our viewers can get some clarity. There's going to probably be some questions in the comments that we may have to read. Man, one witness does not make a trial. Just like one love.
All right.
Absolutely.
And tell us, give us your information again for interviewers we have.
Absolutely. And what type of law? What type of law? You do law? You do any contract law? Know any good contract lawyers? Okay. Once the big boys call our number for this podcast, we may need to some black and white. That is awesome. Much. Thank you so much, Attorney Beto.
All right. Thanks, William. All right.
All right. That was some great insight. I really do enjoy what we heard. I hope you as viewers can kind of go in and listen to this and not be, weigh it against what as far as legalities and litigation. Weigh it against if any type of attorneys are listening in and viewing this, please feel free to comment below and let us know, your insight on what our special guest attorney Mato said.
Yes.
Because these are things as we go through along with these cases, as we go along with sports itself. Shannon, Diddy, this is not the end, and it's not to be the first, it's not the last, I mean, you kind of hope it'll be the last, but things come up.
Things happen, yep.
And you have to be well aware of what's going on, because there's a lot of chaos and people crash out. And speaking of crashing out, I hate to tie this to his name, but this is something that we spoke about on our shorts. But I just want to bring this up. George Pickens is now a Dallas Cowboy, and in the off season, I've been hearing some great things about his new environment and how he's feeling. But I think with me being a Cowboys fan and Tank being a Pittsburgh fan, and this is not necessarily about oh, we took something from you. It's about anything looks good before you get under those lights in September.
Right.
And I have to humble myself because I know what I want from him and I know what I think I can get from him as a Cowboys fan. But I want Tank's insight, and because you watched him every game. I want you to kind of give me some insight on his attributes as a player, and then, his attributes as to why he left and what you all saw, which made the release make sense to you all, if you don't mind.
I think as far as I go backwards, as far as the release, I believe that was because his contract was going to be up at the end of this year. He was going to be up for a new contract. The money he was going to be asking for, Pittsburgh wasn't going to give it to him. He was going to want $100 million at least. They already got $140 million contract with DK Metcalf. They're not going to spend $200 million between two receivers. So they traded him, among other things, because let's get something for him now instead of letting him just walk at the end of this season.
The business of it, right?
Yeah, the business of it. Because I think he and Metcalf would have been a very good combination to have, provided there's somebody with a pulse at quarterback for us. But I'm not going to go off on. I'm not going to go off on that tangent right now. I'll come back to it.
Right.
But as far as the positives about George Pickens, his height, his size, his weight, his strength, his ability and willingness to block when he wants to block. Also,
he just is unwilling to time when he get in his
at times because he's one of those guys who has to get the ball in his hands early in order to be involved. And there's some receivers that are like that. Some others aren't. But after a while, because you're out running routes all the time, he's one of those guys who is, we like to say, the person's always open even when they cover, because he can go up and he can make the contested catch. He can also make those acrobatic grabs that you say, what the hell did I just see? Because you're thinking it's CGI, because he can lay out horizontal and catch the ball on his back. He did that with frequency, and he does it in practice all the time. I mean, his ability is like Ryan Clark said, he's as or more talented than JJ. Not saying that doesn't say that he's better, because he hasn't proven that yet. But his physical gifts and what he's able to do,
JJ being Jefferson audience, JJ being Justin Jefferson. Now, the thing about what you said, and that's why I feel for the young man. What you're saying is he's an 85% of the time on that 50-50 ball, he gonna get that ball 85% of the time and make something acrobatic happen to get it. And the unfortunate side of that is we may not be able to see it because we have a quarterback that is just not that type of risk taker to throw that 50-50 ball and trust his receivers like that. And it's not that he can't trust his receivers. He just doesn't trust himself with that stat line. And he's so spooked. He will take that ability away from someone like George Pickens. E.g., he took that ability from Dez.
Yeah, and if he does that, it's gonna only add to the frustration that Pickens had in Pittsburgh with not having a quarterback all this time. Right. Now he says, I've got a much better quarterback, but he's not utilizing me. And it kind of reminds me, and it's funny. Let me go back about 30, 40 years. And it's funny. And the reason I say it's funny is because it's both of these teams. It's talking about receivers from these two teams, the Cowboys and the Steelers. There was a time, it was Drew Pearson who talked about the reason that he wished that Staubach would do some of the things that Bradshaw did, because he was talking to, Pearson was talking to Swan and Stallworth and saying, I wish that Staubach would do some of those things, because Bradshaw gives you guys chances. Because he throws it up there. Bradshaw I've had a much stronger arm, but you see Swan and Stallworth made a lot of contested and acrobatic catches
Yes.
when you would say, man, he shouldn't have thrown that, but he did it because he not only trusted his arm, but he also trusted his receivers being better than the DBs. Staubach was more cautious and didn't throw those types of balls.
Chris Johnson and Drew Pearson,
Yeah.
like exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And if you don't do that, like you said, that can take away from what Pickens does that makes him special. And it could add to his frustration. Like, man, I'm open, but I heard, but this past week that Lamb was saying, hey, he and Pickens are both number one receivers, and that was nice of him to say, and this, that, and the other.
It was a great gesture.
Yeah,
it was a great gesture.
Financially, Lamb is the number one.
Financially, Lamb is the number one, and I want to touch on that a little bit. I'm not going to say anything about it, but financially, Lamb is definitely the number one, and it's a great gesture. But I have said this before in previous podcasts. I don't even see CD as a one until he gets another type receiver to make him look one-ish. Because I've always asked CD as a one. If you're a one, you're going to make a 1B. If you're a dominant one, I'm about that 1-8. If you're a dominant one, Jefferson, Chase, my man Brown, AJ Brown. Your opposite receiver is just going to look better. He going to get paid. And I never saw, and a lot of that is Dak. But I never saw him do what Amari Cooper did for CD to make them believe CD was more than what he was. Because Amari Cooper demanded, and he ran that route. And there's a possibility, and I believe that's why he said that in that gesture. And this is what I'm bringing it home. George Pickens might be a real one.
Mm-hmm.
And we see CD might be more of a skinny Batman Smith. And if they can figure out that dynamic, because I think that would be what we need to do, is camouflage CD a little bit more, and put him back in that position. You got your money.
Yeah.
Put him back in that position and put Pickens over there. On certain lineups.
Certain routes, yeah.
Because that young man might be more solidified one. We gotta make you a Swiss Army knife to make you a one, CD. We gotta come up with different mechanics and different little things and different little gadget plays, to get you to the one status. I just have,
Do you think that offensive coordinator would be creative enough to bring out the best in both of them and not have it where there's friction? Or because I really think it would be horrible if you're looking at a lot of games where CD has 10 targets and Pickens has 3.
Well, I think the both of them, this is just me personally, I think the both of them are going to have to be happy with maybe a 900 or 1,000 yard season between the both of them, and be happy with getting the W's. And here's why: we got a 10-year man back there, number 4, who's only good when he got a running game.
Mm-hmm.
That. Both of those wide receivers, as much as we're talking about them, Dak is not gonna go
without a running game.
That defense over there got to be just sorry, or he playing from behind again. But Dak is not going to be at his best unless that running game is clicking, which means. And remember, ladies, for all of your comfort and round the house wear, lingerie, comfy clothes, make sure you visit quickvisits.com. That's QUIKVISITS.com. For all of your lounge wear, lingerie wear, sport wear, workout wear, athletic wear, make sure you go to quickvisits.com. They'll be there for you, and you'll love that. I tell you. At receiver, you're going to have to take off a little bit in order to get that started, in order for Dak and that play action to work to his advantage. So that's really, to me, where it begins. It ain't necessarily. It's George Pickens and CD got to get in the room and say, hey man, we're gonna have to share with these 3 running backs back there to get our man going. We're going to have to and I'm not going to say they're Saquon Barkley or of that caliber, but we're going to have to watch them probably rush for 2,000 yards as a committee to get us off, because Saquon Barkley is the reason A.J. Brown and Smith could actually move.
Yeah.
So if he's imaginative enough in his offense to create that first, you know, then you might see them run up the score to get them their stats. But to get them the W's, it got to be Dak in the running game.
Yeah,
first.
definitely. You just mentioned Philly. What do you think about the league? Not, they're gonna let them go ahead with the tush push. It's gonna keep going. Do you think that the league is eventually going to say, "Hey, we got to stop this," or they're just gonna let it keep going until a bunch of teams, or maybe we're gonna need to have multiple teams that are doing it close to the efficiencies that Philly is doing it before it becomes a problem where the league steps in and says, "Hey, we can't have this rugby scrum going on in the."
Here's the thing: the tush push, people are acting like, the tush push is you got to take it out because it's here to stay. It's the personnel. I believe they don't run that, and you can see it throughout the league, because it's not like everybody is doing it like them. It's the personnel, and that personnel eventually gonna have to retire. And you're not gonna replace those guys who can tush push to that degree, because I mean, it might be a long time, but Jalen Hurts is a big boy. He definitely makes that work. He ain't gonna be at quarterback a long time, and you might your next quarterback might be a 6'5" strangly guy that ain't trying to push nothing, or he, so offensive linemen, they get banged up, they get older, so the personnel has to be there, and the reason I say that is it's not that they took this out, but the West Coast offense, it's not like San Francisco just kept it going forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. The personnel had to make it work. Dallas Cowboys, the personnel had to make Pittsburgh Steelers defense, Tampa Bay defense. It's the personnel. So just because you wear a jersey, you're gonna have a dominant. No, it's the personnel. So the tush push gonna phase itself out as those players get older and retire.
I think that's a good point you bring up. The personnel is what runs. It's not the play itself, but it's the personnel that's running the play. Because, like you said, there are other teams who've tried it, and they don't practice it to the same degree that Philly does. The tush push is a part of their offense. It's not a specialty play. Just like you got teams that are a little more imaginative and creative on offense, such as the Chiefs. They do those things. It's not just you say, "Man, I wonder why it works with Mahomes," but these other quarterbacks who might have better arms can do it, because it's not a gadget for KC. It's part of their offense, so they practice it all the time. So you got to. I mean, the one good thing about the tush push, I can't believe I'm saying a good thing about it, is that it does bring banging back to the offense to the line. Because there's no such thing as where I got to get low. Everybody has to get low, and your heads are banging. There's none of this stuff that they try to get everybody to do now. You're going straight ahead.
You banging.
You
banging. And you bring up another point about the personnel. Remember, who was it? Ronnie Brown.
Ronnie Brown
down in
Miami. Yeah, running the Wildcat.
Running the Wildcat. Oh man, that's a new gadgety thing, the Wildcat. People tried that Wildcat. Everybody couldn't do the Wildcat.
Couldn't do it. Right.
Personnel. So them boys, they're gonna get old. They're gonna retire. Jalen Hurts gonna get to a point where he's still gonna be in the game and not want to run that, because he's not gonna want to put his head in there like that. So it'll phase itself out.
Yeah. I just don't like the play because it doesn't get my football juices flowing.
Right.
But I mean, hey, it's one of those things, like we always say, hey, if you don't want me to score, stop me.
Matter of fact, stop me on. You can't tush push. You can't tush push for 4 downs. So do a better job on first and second down, where you don't put yourself in a tush push fourth down situation. And then
Right.
speaking of rugby, not necessarily rugby, but the NFL players have been
Yep.
granted the opportunity to play what would be 707 flag football type
Yeah.
as an Olympic sport. And there's been a lot of more talk about who would make for the best team. But what do you think about players playing in that? I really
Uh,
want to know. I have Brazil under my hat. I want to know who could field a team in another country that could beat America. Because the only thing that I could think of is you have a lot of players that play in the NFL that have ties to other countries, and they could equal out that situation. But what do you think about
yeah.
the whole total aspect? Do you think NFL players should be playing in it and all that good stuff?
Well, piggyback off of what you just said about the other countries. Do we know if other countries are playing flag football and to what degree they're playing it? Because
They're going
it
to
blew
field
up
them.
here.
They're going to field them. They're going to try to
Yeah, they're
field them.
gonna
You
field.
get it on TV.
But
Like
I know they'll try to field them. But will
yeah.
they have the lineage and the years of experience behind them to do it? Now, I don't think that NFL players should be allowed to play it, and it's multifold to me. They can do it the way the NBA did the Dream Team when they like, okay, we lost, now we're gonna put together a Dream Team just to show you that we're better at this, and then go back. But I don't think that the NFL players should be involved because one, if I'm an owner, I don't need Patrick Mahomes out there running around and then all of a sudden he blows his knee out on this Olympic turf and now he's out for the season. And I had what was potentially my best team that I've ever had, and now we're out of the running for a Super Bowl. I don't think star players should be out there playing. I wouldn't want mine out there. And also people who've played flag know that it's a different game overall than traditional 11 on 11 smash mouth football. There's different aspects to it. There are different things that you do. The things that you do in flag
Yeah.
that you don't do when you're in pads. And we've seen guys when they have some of these NFL players playing against the guys who play flag year round and the guys who win national championships, titles playing flag because that's what they do. They Wait a minute, why are they doing this? Because in flag you lateral more. In flag you run different types of routes. You do different things, and it's a whole different concept. And these guys, it's just like when guys go to Canada and all of a sudden, wait a minute, this dude can go in motion and be running towards the line of scrimmage, and they got 12 guys on the field. It's an adjustment period. And initially you might not get it because wait a minute, why is he keeps running forward before the ball snap? Because it's not the NFL. This is Canada. We do that here. I just don't think that they should be allowed. I think the guys who paved the way and have started and carried on the tradition and gotten flag football to where it is, those are the guys who should be allowed to play. You should have guys who might be guys that are in college who are playing intramurals. Let them try out. I don't Because otherwise we're gonna be looking at a team full of NFL players playing flag, and when one of them gets hurt, one of them I hope they don't, but has a Robert Edwards situation. Now all of a sudden that was stupid. You shouldn't have had him out there in the first place. And for those who don't remember, Robert Edwards was a rookie running back for the New England Patriots back in the late '90s, early 2000s, who was in the Pro Bowl. He was playing flag football. They were playing it on the beach, and he ripped his knee up and was never able to come back. And
Robert Owens.
yeah. Mm-hmm. So I mean,
here's the thing, because I think your points are valid. The business side of it is the money grab to me. Mm-hmm. I think what they're doing is we're going to go ahead and open the door for the NFL players to get in there. Mm-hmm. And I think the first wave, because saying that American football NFL players are eligible to play in flag football got the European rugby guys antenna on. It definitely got the Canadian football guys antenna on, right? Those are the two main competitions. But it stretched out the thought process a little bit. And here's what I mean by that. From a monetary standpoint, you're going to be able to market Mr. couldn't make a roster the last 2 years, but I'm a former NFL player playing flag football. And they're going to say former Pittsburgh Steelers, Dallas Cowboy playing, because I believe that's who you're going to see first.
That's who you're going to get, yeah.
I believe you're going to see that first wave, right? Then when they lose, that's when they're going to start trying to get current. And then the NFL going to get with the IOC. I need y'all to make sure that grass is this type of turf and that type of turf. We'll even pay for it. You know, with it being in Los Angeles coming up, they might even get involved this year. And then it opens up the wave for things like this. You know, the Jamaican track team and a lot of the Dominican track team, the Cuban track team, a lot of those guys and women, ladies and gentlemen, run in the U.S. and then go run for their country.
Yeah.
This gives two things. This gives a trainer. You know, you see them all over YouTube. Let me go over here and be a coach. It's like the bobsled team. Let me go over here and be a coach, because I know I got some guys over there in Jamaica that are just faster than these Americans. Just anyway, I need to just go teach them how to run about 7 routes and learn how to catch. So look at the business of training them. Then you have the American citizen ties to other countries that are going to want to go play for their team. You know, so I believe even when you don't have the NFL involved in the beginnings, they're going to have a connection in some way, form, or fashion, because just like you said, flag football is a different animal. It's a different sport. There are some Americans over here playing flag football from other countries. They are going to
go back and represent their countries.
And they played in the NFL 1 or 2 years, and they know that game differently. They can beat the U.S. They can beat the U.S. NFL players, because you're gonna have, just like basketball, you're gonna have to get serious about how to play this international game. Just like you had to play flag football, because it's just a different monster. You know, so I think it opens up the door for that.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Everybody's gonna look. I still would love to see, but it's not feasible to see tackle football in the Olympics if we're gonna do that. But we know it's not feasible for over 2 weeks. We know that. But so if you want to see football in the Olympics, I guess you could say this is the next best thing.
It's the closest thing, and it gives now we have every argumentative athlete in the Olympics. Now that you put football in it, you finally say, you know, that whole who's the most athletic, a swimmer, a gymnast, a basketball player. You know, now you have every aspect of athlete.
Yeah, but I am going to say this regarding the Olympics and the teams feeling. Who was it? Was it Australia? If any of y'all put out some trash like the breakdance lady from Australia, wherever she was from, who wasn't doing no kind of damn breakdancing, if y'all put the equivalent of that out in a flag team, you should get kicked out of the Olympics for the next 10, 15 games.
Answers your question from before. Do you think every country gonna put out one? They don't mind putting out some foolishness. So, you know, and she was the best in her country, fair and square, even though I did see some footage of some people that really deserved it.
Yeah. They put the equivalent of that out there. That country need to be banned for the next 10 Olympic Games.
You know, that's a long time, man. That's 40
years. Yeah. That way I'll be 6 feet under by the time they get another chance.
Awesome work. Now I just want to point out too, congratulations to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for winning the NBA MVP. Both the Western Conference Finals and the Eastern Conference Finals are now 3-1. Great game again tonight by the Knicks. Very exciting game. The game last night, Ant-Man and the Minnesota Timberwolves, I think he had 38 or had 38 in 30 minutes or something crazy. They put a whooping on them, boy, but they're still down 2-1. Excuse me, it was 2-1 for both 2-1 for both series. But some very exciting basketball going on. I am to see point guard play. I love it. I don't like these new precision point guards that want to do all the shooting. I like a true point guard, Tyrese Halliburton. Yeah. Thank you so much, sir. I think you're going to put New York away, and New York's going to end up keeping Brunson, but getting the point guard and let Brunson, go play the Iverson to whomever they get to be Eric Snow. But it's just some great basketball going on, and I'm loving it right now. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Quick question regarding basketball playoffs. Do you think this would make it more or less exciting if instead of a series, it was one game and that's it? Do you think you would get the best out of everybody? If
no,
you don't think you get the best out of it, or you don't think it would improve it?
You could play one game, but the just like baseball, man. Like when you got a rotation of pitchers, it's different, but it's kind of where I'm going with this parallel. The 7-game series. See, we understand football. You probably if you did anything like that, it's gonna be a best of 3. But you hit people and you just can't. You're gonna play a light game. But basketball, and I'll throw baseball in there. That chess match, that adjustment, that travel to the other arena. The referee is gonna give you this call in this arena, and they're gonna give you this call. And the mystique of it is it's just different now. And I think I've said this before. Now, NBA, I've told you this, and I think I said this on the podcast before when Russell brought this up. I have to go look deep into our archives. But if you do want to get the equivalent, I don't think you'll make it, but if you do want to get the equivalent of a Super Bowl, you need to make Game 7 an event. If you have everything I just said with your chess matches, you go there for 3 games, I go there for 3 games. But if we make it to a Game 7, I'm gonna give you all a week off. Mutual site, Las Vegas or wherever. Mutual site, Game 7. And that would give me what I like, and that would give you what you like. There's a possibility that players will play out to a Game 7, but there's a possibility you'll understand. Oh man, you don't want to deal with the magnitude of a Game 7 because guess what? It's already hard enough trying to get my family some tickets for the series we're in.
Right.
I got a week to get all that done, get all that the focus. Let me win this in 4. You can still have sweeps. You can still have gentlemen's sweeps. You can still win 4-2. I don't think Jordan would have ever played in a Game 7 in a large magnitude unless they cheated him some kind of way. But you will turn Game 7, and it's not a home court win.
Into an event.
An event of the greatest magnitude ever for basketball, And
so you would have to have all of that set up in the event that you got to a 7, because there's no guarantee that you're going to get to a 7 if everything's on the up and up.
And that's the point. Like for instance, who doesn't have an NBA team? Las Vegas, where they had the bubble at Orlando. Like you already have the arenas, and those cities know we're gonna make the money. Las Vegas and Orlando, all have great resorts, golf, and all that stuff in the backdrop. You're gambling to a degree, by booking those hotels early and doing all that stuff. But it definitely it plays into the hand of how much of a ticket, how much am I willing to pay? Okay, NBA Finals, and it only happens in the NBA Finals. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen throughout NBA. Only NBA Finals this year. Let's just say my choices. The depth that Indiana is showing and the depth that OKC is showing, I can't with my eyes say one is better than the other one. I can't. They both play to a certain degree. They both have length to where if they win their series, I buy me a Game 7 ticket because I think it's gonna go 7.
Okay.
And then you get your money back if they don't play. But if they do play, you double your money because you might not want to go. But who want to go?
Yeah, I think it would be good, and it would, like you said, it will make it an event, and it'll change the whole feel and experience for the fans and also for the players. It's just that if you start getting a Game 7 every year, you have people talk, man. The NBA not going to miss out on a 7. So you know every year it's going to be 3-3, 3-3. But
Yeah,
how many this?
Yeah, you have to watch. You have to watch the level of manipulation involved in that. So maybe, but injuries happen and people just falter. But yeah, there's a way to manipulate that. But you have to kind of because you might have a lot of game 7s leading up to that fatigue the players so much to where I don't care what the NBA say, we got to get out of here and vote.
Yeah.
That's a lot of games, so that's a lot of opportunity to be injured. I think you'd have that. I think you have that in the back of your mind. I would say this. All-Star game, East and West.
Mm-hmm.
If the East wins, we have the game 7 in the championship in Orlando.
Okay,
the
the West
wins,
have it in Vegas.
That way, the advantage is less travel, and it would be a sense of a home team advantage, and it would put some impact back on the All-Star game to a degree.
Yeah, it's really worth me winning. It's worth me winning this thing.
If we got to go to game 7, and I live in Indiana, I play in Indiana, and I only got to travel to OKC, they might be all right. That's still Mid-America, but if it's the Lakers, 30 minutes.
Yeah, right.
Going to state. What? You're going to have that in the back of your mind. That fan base is going to be able to manipulate.
Yeah, it would be. I think that would be a good move for the NBA if they were to make winning the NBA, winning the All-Star game beneficial to each conference.
Right. Just like I think Major League Baseball does it in some way, form, or fashion.
Yeah. I think that would be interesting. Yeah,
that's awesome work, man. Anything else you want to bring up? How was your vacation, man?
Well,
I saw you went to the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, it wasn't really like a vacation. It was a day trip. Me
okay.
And the kids, or shall I say, the young adults. The thing about it is, because everyone sees the Grand Canyon, and it looks barren, and it's like, okay, it's all desert. That's the South Rim. That's where there's more activity and everything. That's the South Rim. So I put in the GPS Grand Canyon National Park. It comes up. So I put it in. Okay, 4 hours and some change drive. Okay, put it in. However, I didn't know that we were going to the North Rim. Until we got there. And I'm like, this don't look like the Grand Canyon I've been seeing in the pictures. And the lady said, oh, that's the South Rim. I said, well, how far away? Where is that? She said, oh, that's 4 hours away. I said,
yeah, you're way on the other side.
Yeah. I said, oh, okay, well, we coming into here. She said, yeah, it's a lot quieter here. But it was a 7,000-foot elevation. And in Vegas, the weather is like yesterday, Friday was like 95 degrees. We get to the Grand Canyon, the North Rim is 69 degrees. So it was, because the elevation is 7,000 feet up.
Right.
But the view and all that was spectacular. But you can see the difference, just like in the pictures I posted. But you see all these trees, you see all this forestry, and it's like, man, this is different. But and in some parts of the canyon are 221 miles apart from one side to the other.
Oh,
yeah.
I wonder if anybody ever thought this is one thing we just gonna leave alone. I know, man. You think we can do something with that?
Well, they got a lodge up there, and they have cabins up there, and the lodge is on the side where you're looking over. So they got that. But it's different from the views you always get, because it's always the South Rim. So seeing the North Rim was good, and it's spectacular. It's spectacular because you see the history of the Earth from the top all the way down, because each area of life, everything that's happened over time, you see it just going down, because you see the minerals and everything. You see the rocks are different colors because that's a different time period in Earth. And you're talking about millions and millions and millions and millions of years. So it's like it's like you cut a tree down and you can see how old the tree is by the rings. So it's like the equivalent of that. And at the very bottom, there's this stream that runs, and that's where, for that particular lodge, that's where they get their water. So you're getting spring water that you're bathing in and all that. Yeah. Well, in the South Rim, there's a little city where that's the only place where mail is delivered by mule in the South Rim. But down there,
when we was in Vegas, we started to go, but we were like, yeah, we're gonna get down there to the South Rim and just look and have to hurry up and turn around and go catch our flight, so we didn't go.
Yeah, it's a whole. The South Rim has a whole lot of other stuff going on and activities for people to do. But yeah, so yeah, you're not gonna go there and just turn around and come right back.
Right, it's hard
because it's too. Yeah, but yeah, it was fun though. I mean, it's yeah.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I know this much. Those 5 remaining escapees from Louisiana, they want to go somewhere where nobody ain't gonna follow them. They can come to the Grand Canyon. Ain't nobody gonna look for you there.
Shout out to Tank giving escapees ideas and escape route other than I-95. You know what I'm saying? Exactly. Well, and on that note, this has been NoJass. Welcoming ourselves back. That's NoJass. That stands for Not Just Another Sports Show. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks again, Attorney
Matos.
Yeah, Attorney Matos for coming out for us. We want to thank you all. Thank all of our subscribers. Thank you for subscribing on Facebook, NoJass Show. Instagram, NOJ.A.S. Show. TikTok, NoJass Show. Twitter, NoJass Show. We really do appreciate you. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share, and do all those things. Tank, you got any last words other than what you gonna do for the what you call it? For the guys on
you guys on the run. Yeah. What it say?
On the Green Mile in Shawshank.
Yeah, until they're all caught, I guess we might. Maybe we should start playing 100 miles and running until they all get caught.
Hey. And on that note, in the words of Ice Cube, you went 100 miles and you still got one to go. All right, everybody. This has been NoJass. Salute the people, Tank.
Holla.
All righty, we out of here. Boom. Hour and 30. You just watched another episode of NoJass. Follow us on YouTube at NoJass Show. And make sure you hit us up on Twitter at NoJass Show. Make sure you hit us up on Instagram at NOJ.A.S. Follow us on Facebook, on our Facebook page at NoJass Show. All right? See you soon.